Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Valerie and today I have a sewing tutorial and pattern for this faux for bolero and top I'm wearing. I think this outfit is perfect for the upcoming holidays and there's still enough time to sew it. By the way, the collar and cuffs are detachable so the bolero can be machine washed. The link to the pattern is the first link in the description down below. All the materials I'll list in a pattern file, but I'll also go over them later. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So let's talk about the materials we'll need. For the shell of the bolero and top, we will need knit fabric, or you can use any other stretchy fabric. Lawn pile 4, linen fabric. Since the collar and cuffs will be detachable, we'll need to sew the linen onto the reverse side of the 4. Interfacing, to reinforce the linen and make it more stable. And accessories. Elastic bias tape for finishing the edges, fabric covered buttons for the top, and sew-on snaps to attach the collar and cuffs to the bolero. The required amount of each material is specified in a pattern file. And of course the pattern, which as I mentioned you can find via the first link in the video description. The print size for the pattern should be paper size A4 and scaled to fit the paper. After printing the pattern, cut away the excess with their corresponding markings with scissors, assemble all the sheets, and cut out all the pieces. After you've cut out the pattern, you can start cutting out on the fabric. So I've cut out all the pieces for the top and the bolero. I'll cut the 4 pieces later. Let's start by assembling the bolero. Take the front and back pieces of the bolero, place them right sides together, and sew along the side and shoulder seams. I'll be doing this in an overlocker, but if you don't have one, you can sew them on a regular sewing machine, using a zigzag or any other stretch stitch. The seam allowance throughout the entire pattern is 7 mm, which is equal to the width of the presser foot. Now, take the sleeve piece, fold it in half lengthwise, and sew along the edge. Do the same with the second sleeve. Next, we need to attach the sleeves to the bolero. To determine which sleeve goes on which side, follow the sleeve along its seam. The side with the deeper curve should go toward the front. Then find the top of the sleeve and match it with the shoulder seam of the bolero, and the bottom of the sleeve with the side seam. Usually sleeves are cut slightly larger than the armhole to allow for easing, but with knit fabric it's the opposite. The sleeve should be slightly smaller to avoid excess fabric and unwanted folds. So here the sleeve is slightly smaller, so I gently stretch it and pin it evenly into the armhole. You can also base it by hand to ensure nothing shifts, but I'm comfortable just using pins. Then I'm going to take it to the overlocker and sew it in a circle. And of course, we do the same with the second sleeve. All the seams are pressed toward the back. Now, the edges of the top need to be finished with the elastic bias tape. Measure the required length of the tape, adding 2 cm for seam allowances. Next, take the ends of the tape and fold them together like this. Then sew a diagonal stitch. This way the seam won't be bulky. Make sure the tape isn't twisted when joined into a loop. Next, align the bias tape with the edge of the bolero so that it wraps around both sides. Since the straight stitch isn't stretchy, to prevent it from breaking, gently stretch both the bolero and the bias tape as you sew. This will make the stitch more relaxed and allow it to stretch. Finish the sleeve the exact same way, with the bias tape. Now the bolero is done and can be set aside for now. Let's move on to the top. First, I'm going to attach the placket where the buttons will be. I'm going to take the placket piece and press the seam allowances like this. First, I'm going to fold the piece in half to create a center line, which will guide me when pressing the seam allowances. Then I'm going to press the seam allowances toward the center line. Next, I'm going to place the placket onto the top, right in the middle, and secure it with pins. Then I decided to secure it with basting stitches, to ensure it will not shift. I'm going to sew it in place from both edges, about 1 mm from the edge. I also want to create a corset-like effect using top stitching. So I'm going to draw lines where I'll sew the stitches and then sew along them. And here's how it looks. I hope you can see it on the black fabric. Now place the front and back pieces right sides together and sew on the side and shoulder seams. Just like the bolero, we are going to finish the edges of the top with bias tape. Measure the required length of the bias tape, adding 2 cm for seam allowances. Join the tape into a loop and sew it on, while slightly stretching both the top and the tape. All that's left is to sew on the buttons. The top and the bolero are done. Now it's time to make the collar and cuffs. As I mentioned earlier, the cuffs and collar will be detachable, so that the top and bolero can be easily washed. Before cutting the pieces from the fore, you need to determine the direction of the pile. For the collar, the pile should run away from the neck. So I'm going to take the collar pattern piece and place it so that the fore runs in the correct direction. The cuff pieces are rectangular, making it easy to figure out how to cut them. So I've cut out the collar and cuffs out of the fore. Now take the same pattern pieces for the collar and cuffs, but trim off the seam allowances. The lining needs to be slightly smaller than the fore pieces, to create a clean turn of the fabric, ensuring the fore rolls over the edge and the lining stays hidden. The lining also needs to be reinforced with interfacing. I've cut the same pieces out of interfacing, and now I'm going to place them on the wrong side of the lining with the adhesive side facing down. Then I'm going to press them with an iron. To keep the interfacing from shifting, use pressing motions with the iron, rather than sliding it. and repeat the same process for the cuffs. After everything is interfaced, take the 4-color piece and place it right sides together with the lining piece. Then pin them together. Now, I'm going to sew a seam 7mm from the edge all the way around, leaving a small opening in the middle. This opening will be used to turn the collar right side out. I use tweezers to help tuck the foreign side. Next, turn the collar right side out. And the opening can be closed with a blind stitch. Now, I'm going to sew the snaps into the collar. The snap placement is marked on the pattern. I'm going to sew one part of the snap, the top part, onto the collar, and the other part onto the bolero. Now onto the cuffs. I've sewn the 4-piece and the lining together along the side edges, leaving 1cm unsewn at each end. Now turn the cuff right side out and pin the 4 sides together. I'm going to hand stitch them together using simple overcast stitches, making them close and frequent. Here's how it looks. It's a bit hard to see on black fabric, so I'll add a picture to show what it looks like. Just basic overcast stitches. Next, I'm going to take one side of the lining, fold it under, and place it over the other side, securing it with pins. Then I'm going to simply sew them together with a blind stitch. Here's how it looks. I've also sewn 2 snaps into the cuffs and attached the other snap pieces to the sleeve seams. Now, I'm going to attach the collar to the bolero and the cuffs to the sleeves, and the bolero is done. really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. If you decide to sew this bolero on top using my tutorial, tag me on Instagram and I'll repost your creations. I'll see you in the next videos. Bye!